Everyone, would you please welcome to the Putting You Over podcast. He is a guitar player and vocalist for the group Rancid, and he is the host of the Wrestling Perspective Podcast. He is Lars Frederiksen.
What an intro.
That was an intro from hell.
Right? That was good.
I wish my kids would greet me like that in the morning.
How do they greet you?
Why do I got to get up, Dad? You know what I mean? Get out of my room. I'm hungry. Can you get my clothes?
How old are your kids, if you don't mind me asking?
14 and 10.
Oh, I got three daughters, 13, 9. No, not 13. Oh my God. She thinks she's a teenager. 12, 9, and 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
You got your hands full, buddy.
Tell me about it. That's why I get to
come and I'm about, I'm trying to have more too. So everybody says I'm crazy, but I'm like, I've always wanted a big family and I got a lot of energy, even at 50 years old, I don't feel that way up here. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So
do it. Let's do it up. It's that easy, right?
Practice makes perfect.
Yeah. That's what I try. It's what I've been telling my wife, but it just doesn't work out that way.
Well, the thing is that, my partner's 10 years younger than me. And she's never had the opportunity to have kids. So I was just like, yeah, I'm down. And, for me, it's like all about the love.
Sure. Spread the love. Brooklyn way.
Yeah.
That's Danny Limelight.
It's the Viking way.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a little late.
Oh, don't worry about it. It's what makes the live aspect of the show fun, is you just come on when you come on. You've been a wrestling fan your entire life.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, always on in the house.
Well, it wasn't always accepted. How about that?
That's true.
I was fortunate enough to grow up in the Bay Area, so we had a lot of different kind of wrestling TV shows. So we had, we got the AWA, we got the WWF at the time. We got Glow. This is all later on. We got that when the Superstation happened, when we finally got it on the West Coast, we were able to watch the NWA. And we also had Polynesian Pacific Championship Wrestling, which was like Haichi Peter Maivia. And I think their champion was Lars Anderson. And I was pretty stoked because, it's the first time I knew somebody with my name that was like on TV, because Lars is not like a common name, but, yeah, I would absorb it. I would just, everything about it. And my friend Andy Finney, he was from Detroit. He was a little older than all of us. He's a kind of a friend of my mom's, and it was same neighborhood. Everybody in the neighborhood knew each other. It was back in the 70s and early 80s when you actually talked to your neighbors, right? So
yeah, right. Went outside.
But he would see wrestling in Detroit at Kobo and talked about the Sheik and stuff. And he had a stack of wrestling magazines. I think it was The Wrestler or something else. And I remember it had the apartment wrestling segment in the which was like these women that were wrestling around the apartment or whatever. So it was kind of it was for a preteen. It was awesome.
Yeah, I bet.
But yeah, so I got exposed to it pretty early, and then a lot of the times, I think one of the first guys I ever met was Don Morocco, because Don Morocco used to live in Santa Cruz, which wasn't that far from where I grew up. So, and then you find out the history of the Mission District in San Francisco and the Samoans and the Tongans, and because we had those in our neighborhood too, Samoans and Tongans. Yeah. So it's like it was really cool back then, because there was a lot to choose from, and it was cool. But everybody made fun of me for watching it because they said this is fake, and I would defend it to the death and say no, this is real.
Wrestling fans growing up, being a fan of wrestling in school at a young age, got a stigma. It definitely had a stigma, and it's like a closeted wrestling fan. I remember I had like maybe a small group of friends that I would enjoy it with, and that was about it. And being called a mark was looked at, I guess. It kind of is being called a mark a negative thing.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I feel like when all that terminology started to come out was after, when the dirt sheets got a little bit more popular. And so everybody decided that they knew wrestling speak. Yeah. So, I don't know if a mark is a good or a bad thing. I'm just a wrestling fan. The Carney speak for mark is just like, someone you could make money from, I guess.
Right.
But fuck it. If I'm a mark, I'm a mark. Oh, I hope I can swear.
You're fine.
Okay, sorry about that.
No,
well, then I'll continue to say fuck.
There you go.
But yeah, so I don't really necessarily know. I mean, I think people now with the with all the social media stuff, and there's like, a lot of people are able to kind of have an opinion and a voice, and a lot of them, including myself, shouldn't have them. But I feel like if you're using a derogatory term towards a wrestling fan, it's pretty stupid. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, it seems like there's a competition, about who knows the most. And it's like, who cares? How about just not knowing and waiting to see what unfolds in front on your TV screen? It's like, as you know, I have a lot of friends who are professional wrestlers, and like when this whole Punk and, I'm going brain dead. The new
Kingston.
Angle with Punk, thank you, with Eddie Kingston. Like I was said, this is some of the best shit I've seen in a while. Don't tell me what Don't tell me anything, because I want to be surprised, and I want to be entertained. And I mean, that's why I love professional wrestling, is because the entertainment value. You know what I mean? And there's so much to choose from now. It's like you can't. There's not enough days in the week, to catch up.
No, there is not. My wife says it's on every day of the week, and I was like, yeah, it pretty much is.
Yeah.
That's interesting. We were just mentioning, we were reading the notes for the AEW media call for Full Gear, and someone asked the question, is Lio Rush and Dante Martin, are they a new tag team? And I'm like, dude, just let the story play out. His tag team partner is going to come back. There's an arc there. And I don't think we get enough of that in today's product. We get it here and there, but not everywhere. Yeah.
Well, I think storytelling is somewhat of a lost art in the last 15 plus years in professional wrestling. I feel like even the wrestlers forget how to tell the stories, inside the ring. And it's Crash Course TV. It's like 3 weeks. And that's the end of the angle at the pay-per-view. Right. At least that's, somewhat of the WWE. But what I see, AEW, GCW, some of these more independent companies, like you look at the Jimmy Lloyd G Raver thing that's happened, and it was over a year basically. And, it's like to build that kind of stuff and to do it successfully, it's still there. Like, I feel like people and companies can do it. I mean, I think a lot of people are looking at, is the attention span of this age bracket going to last? And it's like, I'm from the school, and maybe I'm just older, but I mean, watching Dusty in the Four Horsemen, and that was what, 2 freaking years basically that they ran that angle. And then, after Magnum got hurt, then you had a whole other thing happening with the superpowers. And, so I feel like, if you can emotionally attach to a professional wrestler, it doesn't matter how long you drag the story out, but you also have to ebb and flow, and you have to bring new things in and out of that, in order to keep it successful. But that's just me as a wrestling fan watching. I mean, I've never been in creative and behind the scenes and wrote for any of this stuff, although I feel like I should. But I mean, that's also part of being a wrestling fan, and for as long as I have been, and I think that, like, if you're seeing, I remember when I was watching AEW, and I did have a criticism. I think it was a Moxley match. I can't remember who he was against, but there was this bump, and he goes through 2 tables, and then he gets up 5 seconds later and starts running the ropes. And it's like, where's the fucking psychology here? It's like, why would you even do the table spot if you're going to be running the ropes 5 seconds later? It's just that kind of stuff. And then you see, like, there's a match, I believe it might have been on Raw, and it was Punk and William Regal for the IC belt. And it's like, you got Punk kicking him in his back, and Regal gets up and selling his hand like it's like, oh, he kicked me so hard in the back that now my arm is fucking.
Yeah.
And it's just like those little things are just like pins. Like, I mean, lackadaisical pins, and then the referee not, being where the referee should. It's just like, I think those little things like that. And I don't want to sound like a critic,
right?
Because I think what's going on is pretty wonderful. And I feel like everybody's got that room to learn, but seeing that psychology, it's kind of like, where does Omega and Bryan go from there? I mean, yeah, they had an amazing match, but like, where does it go from there? You know what I mean? But then you see like a guy, and I'm going to keep referring to him, not only because he's my best friend, but he's got a fucking mind for the shit. He's slowing the match down, and that's and he's keeping it like, believable. And there's a story being told actually in the ring. And I think a lot of that is, I mean, everybody thinks that they got to get up, do 20 high spots, boom, 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 jerk each other off, and then boom, let's go home. And it's like, fuck, man. It's like, what just happened? Like, there's nothing was told there. It was just a bunch of high spots.
There's no foreplay anymore. It's just like,
no, straight to the fucking baboon. Sorry for the ladies.
Sorry. But Vanessa will be fine, I hope.
Sorry, Vanessa.
I did, don't worry.
I agree. When CM Punk came back at that first match with Darby Allin, one hell of a match. You could see the difference. He did slow it down for probably a couple reasons. First match back in a long time, one, but that's told a story, that match between those two.
Well, even the Matt Sydal match. Yeah. I mean, here's Matt Sydal, who can pretty much do anything at all. And it was like a wrestling match. I felt like I could be watching Dick Murdoch versus Harley Race. Like, it's that slow, it's that pace. There's a story there. It's like survival of the fittest. It's like wearing each other down, and then finally getting the GT, like, after all this time. You know what I mean? It's like, it's that kind of thing that you get emotionally invested in. And when it can reach out of your screen and get you emotionally invested on who's going to be the winner and who's going to be the loser, and you forget that it's like, oh, they've already worked it out. When you can be there with all of that, that's what is the entertaining part about it. But when people want to spoil it and want to know who's in, I don't care about the ratings. I don't care about any of that shit. Like, none of that stuff matters to me. I know that there are some people who that's important to, and that's obviously a valid talking point. But at the same time, it's like, I want to see guys that are characters and that are able to develop themselves as characters, and not only that, but have an emotional connection with the audience, and i.e. me. That's what's going to get me to spend money and sit in front of my TV on a Wednesday night or a Monday night or a Friday night.
Well said. Punk is your best friend, or one of your really close friend. And he's got, cult of personality. AEW's got a ton of music. The Pixies song for the best friends there. Your
which
band,
is great,
phenomenal. Works. Where's my? Yeah, I remember that song from Fight Club. Whenever I hear that song, I think of Fight Club. But now I'm slowly getting into best friends. Your song with Rancid, Ruby Soho, and then Ruby Riott, now Ruby Soho herself. How did that even come about?
Well, it's a long, short story, really. So she reached out to me when she was still with the WWE, and I think it was around a pay-per-view, and I can't remember which one it was, but she basically wanted to model one of her outfits to something that I had worn. And she hit me up and asked me if that was cool. And I said, yeah, of course it's cool. I know who you are. I'm a fan. And I've always loved Ruby because I always thought she had a lot more grit than a lot of the rest of the girls. And she wasn't like the rest of the girls. She stood out because, number one, she knew how to wrestle. She was, you could tell that there was a psychology there and there was a rhyme and a reason. But I didn't think, because of that programming at that time, they weren't giving the women, the opportunity to show what they really could do. But you can kind of tune in when you've been watching a while on who's really talented and who's just, a fitness model. So, and which is totally fine. It's all about entertainment, right? But for me, like as a professional wrestling fan, I clue into more of that, right? So I always had an affinity for her. And when she asked me that, I was like, perfect. And so we would chat every once in a while. She sent my kids a bunch of t-shirts and stuff like that. And I sent her a bunch of Rancid stuff and Bastards and whatever she wanted. And we became friends. And when she was released from the WWE, you know, I think there was a couple months there. And then I finally hit her up and I said, hey, I noticed that you're not doing any, you know, interviews or anything like that. And I told her, respect this, but I got a podcast. Love for you to come on. You know, obviously we'll just talk about whatever you want to talk about. We're just kind of wrestling fans, you know, who want to talk about wrestling and not about, you know, shit for the dirt sheets. Right. And so she said, yeah, you know what? I'm going to come on. And that was the first interview that she did after her letting go of from the WWE. And as we were talking, she was like, yeah, you know, obviously can't keep the name. I'm looking for a new name. And I was like, well, fucking duh, you know, Ruby Soho, Rancid, you're kind of, you know, you're into punk rock. Yeah. It'll make perfect sense. It'll make sense. And I know the people, so we can make this happen. And she was pretty flabbergasted. I don't think she quite believed me at the time, but then she hit me up and I just gave her my phone number and I was just like, just call me up. Let's try to work it out. And then I was privy to, you know, she was letting me know the information about maybe what she might do and all these things. And with the song, like the name for her was a lot different than like the song, you know, because the song is now, you know, kind of, it's an intellectual property, you know what I mean? Yep. And so is, you know, the name of the song, but anyways. And I wanted to make it as easy as possible and still feel like everybody was being treated fair. And it went really easy because Tony is obviously, you know, actually we just interviewed him on the Wrestling Perspective today. And, you know, he's a fan. He knows, you know, what, you know, I'm a fan. He's a fan. He was on the tape trading boards when I was on the tape trading boards. It's like,
that's right.
You know, so it's like, there's this commonality. So it was only going to work. But at the end of the day, and I've said this in every interview that this topic has come up, but Rancid, yes, you know, we've been around 30 years and all that. And that song is probably one of the song that we're most well known for. I mean, maybe there's a few others, but it's one small part to her big thing. You know what I mean? And being in partnership like that with her is actually the raddest way it could have ever come out for Rancid to be involved in something like this. Because I used to watch Punk and he'd be coming out to something. I'd just be like, that ain't him. Or, you know, Sterling James Keenan, you know, he came out to Mainline Murder by Lars Frederiksen and the Bastards. And I think we, you know, so there has been wrestlers that have come out to music that I've made or whatever, but never in this kind of environment. And so to say that I'm honored is, you know, I don't know. I mean, it's incredible because, you know, just hearing the song for the first time, and I got my family with me and we're all watching it, and it was just pretty magical because my kids were kind of looking at me like, you know, is dad really that cool? You know?
Right.
Yes, I fucking am. You know what I mean? I make this ham sandwich. You know. Anyway,
would you like to make music for wrestlers?
Well, you know, I have had opportunities in the past, but it's like either I've got some things in store, you know what I mean? Or coming up, let's just say potential things. But I feel like it's got to be right for everybody, you know, because it's not like I'm trying to get, you know, rich or anything, but it would be nice to be, you know, accompanied with somebody that not only that you're a fan of, because I feel like I couldn't go, if Sean Stasiak made a comeback, I'd be like, and they said, write a song for Sean. I'd be like, whoa, you know, and nothing against Sean Stasiak, but like, you understand what I'm saying? Like, I need to have, if it's like an Eric Young or, you know, I mean, the list can kind of go on. I don't really want to give any more away, but like, if I could do it like that, and if it's something that's more in my wheelhouse, and that's where I would start to do that before maybe I branched out and did other things. Like, you know, I could see myself working like that, but I don't know if I necessarily want to be working for a wrestling company as a music guy. You know, I'm kind of doing my own thing, and I think I'm doing okay. You know,
for sure. I'm gonna mark out for a second. But one of my favorite, first I love the Rancid songs, but one of my favorite is "Leaving Here," which was a cover, and you recorded it with
Bastards.
Thank you. And phenomenal song. And then Pearl Jam started covering it, and I was like, "Fuck, this is great." Anyways, off that. You mentioned tape trading. Were you heavily into that?
Yeah, I was. I mean, that's one of the ways that you could get exposed to companies
stuff,
especially stuff from Japan or stuff that you'd never seen, like some CWF stuff or, Florida stuff, where, you could get the whole angle of like, Kevin Sullivan and, so it's like you could, I remember, and I forget his freaking name. And I did this last time and I said, I'm not going to forget his name. But there was a gentleman on there. You'd pay $10 and he would FedEx you something about that thick. And it was just his match listing.
All those
and what
matches.
you would do, and I forget his freaking name.
I think his name's Lynch.
Yes, Lynch.
Yeah. I
think it was Lynch. Yeah. So, because I knew Schneider, I knew Will, I knew, Rob Naylor, guys like that. But and I would always be led to Lynch's thing. So I remember and there was another guy in Japan. I think he might have been in the service or something, but he was in the Southern California. I forget what's his name, but he was more of the women's stuff down there. But long story short, I used to go through the match listings or those things, and I would gather the matches out, send $20, and then get a videotape back. I still have a lot of those videotapes, and a friend of mine, Will Helmick, he was good helmet on the boards, and he took a lot of those Lynch tapes and a lot of these other things that he had got and burned them to DVD. And then when the DVD thing started to happen, it was it kind of opened up a whole different thing, you know what I mean? So, I mean, just getting that information, the stuff from Japan, that's how I saw, a lot of the All Japan, the New Japan stuff, and, then the Big Japan and a lot of the IWA and a lot of the deathmatch stuff. And that's how I got it all for the first time.
I remember that. I remember trading tapes. I think I even remember picking out of a list of matches. Kids today, my kids have no idea, nothing.
No.
They want something, they type it up. It's insane.
Yeah.
Oh man. So you're a part of a wrestling podcast, like all of us are. Wrestling Perspective Podcast. Great collection of people. I'm sure gonna leave out names. But Jason Kendall, great catcher, from the Pirates. Dimitri Young. There's a hockey guy, McCarty.
Darren McCarty.
Thank you very much. But he's
my hometown boy.
What, Darren McCarty?
I'm from where he grew up.
Oh, you're from Canada?
Yep.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. Great show. But your podcast radio show goes back even farther to Rancid Radio, where you guys had the first interview with John Cena as the prototype.
That is correct. That is correct. Yeah, because I remember I can't remember if it was Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, or I can't remember what the name of the promotion was, but I think it was running at the Roxy.
Okay.
And me and my co-host at the time, Birdman, his name's Brent Warnecki, or Warnecki, whatever. It's Polish. That's all I know. It's just a fucked up spelling. It's a hockey player's last name. But so he was a super fan like myself, and he knew a lot about wrestling, and we had somewhat of the same upbringing and roughly around the same age. And he lived in Los Angeles at the time, and I would go down there a lot, obviously to record with Rancid or do whatever it was. And when we started the idea with Rancid Radio, we were doing it through our website, through the internet, right at first, and then it ended up getting picked up by Sirius before it became the two merged.
Yeah,
I think it was when just Sirius was doing it, and long story short is we went down to the show, and I knew a guy there. He was a manager. His name was the Big Schwag. And there was guys down there like Rob Van Dam would stop in every once in a while and things like that. And there was a few guys that I knew from the indies and whatever. And I asked Schwag, I said, hey, is it cool if we come down with a tape recorder? And this is one of those handheld tape machines. I said, and do a few interviews. And he said, yeah, for sure. And when the prototype came out, and I think it might have been his first match that he had ever done, we watched it, and he came out and he was doing the Terminator trip, and he was so believable and so good at what he was doing. I knew the guy was going to be a star. He was in phenomenal shape. He knew what he was doing. I think he went over. I don't think it was that long of a match, but people didn't even know if they were going to cheer him or boo him. But it was like that stone cold thing where they were unsure about where this guy was going to land, because a lot of the people were into it, but a lot of people, because it was kind of a squash, didn't know how to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I went up to him and I said, hey, I don't know if you'd be interested in it, but I would love to interview. I was telling, and we called the Birdman anyways, Brent. I said, I think this guy's going to be a superstar. And I don't know if they had started working with the WWF at the time, because I know that they had at some point, whatever this promotion was, I can't remember. I think it was Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. It could be something a little older. Anyway, so we did about a 5-minute thing with him, and he was super cool. And he said, do you want me to do this in character or do this as a shoot? And I said, let's just do it as a shoot. And he talked about himself and just told us, what his real name was, and what kind of music he was into. And he said hip hop, and I still have the tape of it somewhere. But the funny thing about it is that when I went out and I was on a loop with Punk and Kofi, and I was flying home, and it was I can't remember. It was I can't remember if Punk was with SmackDown, because I remember we were there for the Raw, and then we stayed on the Tuesday for the SmackDown. That's how they were taping it. And I was at the airport at the same time as John Cena. And I walked up to him and I said, hey man, how you doing? And he said, and he kind of was like, looked like he did not want to be bothered. And he looked up and he said, hey, and I said, do you remember me? And he goes, yeah, I do. And I go, well, blah, blah. And he goes, yeah, you were the first, and you were the one that gave me my first interview. So, and he remembered that. So that was kind of a pretty cool little moment, that we had, because obviously he's bigger than, anybody right now. Yeah. As far as an actor, well, him and Rocky anyway.
Yeah, that is great, man. That's awesome. So you guys did. I saw you guys on the Wrestling Perspective podcast had Tony Khan. You taped that today, or it came out today?
We taped that today, and it's going to come out, I think, tomorrow. Because we a lot of the times, since I'm on the road, and now Petey's got a job at the WWE now, and Darren hockey season, you kind of can't bother him, and Dimitri and Jason, he had some other stuff. There was a point where he was going to go start working for a ball team, and so he had to kind of pull out of things, and said when I can do it, I'll do it. Right. And then Dimitri, he was teaching high school ball, and I think he's got some other stuff going on. So everybody joins when everybody can join. Right. So it's like, and that's kind of the rule. So if I can't be there, then the show goes on. If Darren can't be there, the show goes on. It's kind of the same thing. The only person that we cannot be there with is Dennis Farrell, who's basically like the producer and probably I would say the main host, because he always starts off the interviews with the first question, and he's very intelligent and he's a great producer, and he really kind of keeps us all together and starts the flow. And a lot of the times gets a lot of the guests,
Yeah. So we were talking before you came on, and we were talking AEW's Full Gear is this Saturday night. I think it's a stat card. It's going to be 4 hours, so I probably will not make it through. But we were like, hey, maybe we should get Lars's perspective and get a little preview on each of these matches. And we'll run down the matches. You up for that?
Let's do it. Are we going to start from the curtain jerker, or are we going? Let's wait for the main event. let's work our way to the main event.
We'll start right at the buy-in. They just announced a buy-in matches, so we'll do that. We got Nyla Rose and my favorite Jamie Hayter versus Thunder Rosa and Hikaru Shida.
Thunder Rosa and Akira is going to go over for sure. I think it's going to be a good match, though. I think any match with Thunder Rosa in it is really good. I'm really surprised she hasn't, or maybe it hasn't happened yet, or maybe it's in. But I'm surprised she's not on the WWE. Honestly, I feel like, sure, her style and what she can do, and maybe it's better for her to be in an AEW and an NWA and do the indie stuff. Maybe that's just more congruent with her schedule. But I'm really quite surprised because she's an intense talent, although I think they would totally kill her up there, change her gimmick, and destroy whatever she built. So,
we've had her on the show twice. She did have stuff with the WWE. They wanted her to be a ref. That's what they wanted. So you're right. They were going to destroy her.
Well, I know that she worked with them as one of the Godfather's friends, but she's just such an incredible talent. I mean, whoever she steps in the ring with goes up a notch. She's like one of those types of wrestlers, and she hasn't been doing it for all that long, but I feel like she has a unique perspective, and the things that she can do in there are just definitely unbelievable.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So we got Thunder Rosa and Shida going over. Up next, tag team match, Pac and Cody Rhodes versus Malachi Black and Andrade El Idolo.
Well, I feel like just for the sake of storytelling, you got to put Malachi and Andrade over. Because Cody, if Cody goes over, I mean, I feel like they've had their moments with Cody, and I think he's a great wrestler. And one of my favorite things that Cody ever did, one of my favorite gimmicks ever, was the Stardust thing, right? Going way back. I actually got a painting commission, and it's my friend Hal Haney, and what he does is he does like these half faces. So half was Gold Dust, half was Stardust.
Nice.
Because I love that tag team, even though it lasted 3 days or 3 minutes or however. So they could have gone for so fucking long with them, and they didn't. I mean, they were broken up before the toys came out. So, so I am a fan of Cody Rhodes, but I feel like for the storyline's sake, and I understand like the Pac thing there. I'm not super I don't really gravitate to his thing. I understand that he's very talented, but it's not something that draws any heartstrings. I'm out of the four, Malachi, I would say is probably my favorite and somebody that I actually root for. But yeah, I feel like if they're smart, if the booking's smart, it's not going to end in like some schmaz thing. But there's going to be a clean pin, because I feel like that thing with Cody, trying to get that anger again, that could be one more part of that story,
Awesome. Keep it going. Keep it going. Darby Allin versus MJF.
Yeah, this is going to be a hard one. I mean, one of the things that I kind of wish would have happened, and this is if Darby said nothing throughout this whole thing. And that would just only infuriate MJF that much more, like, why aren't you saying something to me? You know what I mean? But MJF is like, I mean, look at him. He's just, now he's got his mom and dad involved. Like, it's so amazing. It's so wonderful, and it's so believable. And how we had him on the Wrestling Perspective, and he had a great time, but all he did was roast us.
Yeah.
And that we kept him in character.
Perfect.
And that's what he did for an hour. And it was one of the best interviews we'd ever done, just because the way he can sort of transcend, just the professional wrestling thing. I mean, the whole mid thing. I mean, even my kids knew about it, but they didn't find out about it because they were watching AEW every week, because they're kind of week on, week off with me. They found it out from like some rappers, you know what I mean? So like, that's how he transcends the business. And that's the kind of guy that you want to build a company around.
Yeah. That's the future.
I would say this one ends in a draw.
All right. Draw. Up next.
With some kind of disqualification.
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah.
Nothing clean.
Nothing clean. Up next, Eddie Kingston and your dear friend CM Punk.
This is hard. This is one that I don't want to predict, but I don't think I mean, this is tough. Yeah. I mean, I really can see this thing going and making money, because this is like, excuse me, babyface versus babyface, basically.
Pretty much, yep.
That hardly ever works, and when it does, it's like lightning in a bottle. You know, I think of Lawler and Dundee, you know, in Memphis, and then how that went down, and I think of Stone Cold and The Rock, and I think of, even though they tried to make Stone Cold the heel, everybody was like, nope, we're not having it, you know. So, and even, you know, Hogan and The Rock, that match, I mean, that was electrifying, you know, not to steal a catchphrase, but yeah, this one has the potential to be huge. I think this can go on for a minute. I don't think it should just end here. I think there's a lot more to the story about, you know, I think there's a way, because, you know, it's been publicly expressed about Punk's mental health and how he was, you know, working like a dog. And then you have Eddie Kingston bringing light and attention to that aspect. And I feel like it could be a great playoff of each other, and that could end up being something really good, to the point where you might see them. I mean, if I could write this would go on for 6 to 8 months, but wow. I don't think I'm going to be invited to that.
No,
but I will say, I mean, I hope it's like a 60, I don't know how long is it a 60-minute time? I don't know if they
doesn't say.
I hope it goes the distance. Whatever it does, I hope those two beat the shit out of each other and it goes the difference, and we haven't settled it yet. And I hope they do something old school like that.
Yeah, I'm hoping that this story keeps going as well. Love both,
because there's really not, I mean, and there's really not a guy that can match Punk on the mic skills. Maybe MJF,
right?
And Jericho, maybe, but you know, he can get corny at times, even though I love him to death. But I think he does that kind of purposely. But I feel like Eddie's really fucking believable, but so is my buddy Phil.
Yeah, for sure. Up next, Jurassic Express with Christian Cage taking on Adam Cole and the Young Bucks.
Well, I think the Young Bucks and Adam Cole are going to go over. I really feel like, you know, there's got to be something with, you know, I think it's going to be like Christian Cage might be the one that they pin. I kind of feel like that's going to happen because, I mean, you know, that's kind of what the older, more respected wrestlers will do. They will give that gift. And, you know, watching him at Bound for Glory, you know, and the way that ended and turned around, it was an exciting match. It was well put together. I think Christian Cage is probably one of the most talented wrestlers to ever face, to step foot in the ring. But I just have a feeling that, you know, Adam Cole, I mean, he's the shit. And I think that they're the two stars. I mean, we know what the Young Bucks can do, right? But I feel like Jungle Boy needs an opportunity to bust out of the crew kind of thing to become what he's meant to be. Because that kid is fucking talented. And I think that seeing an Adam Cole versus Jungle Boy match, you know what I mean, later on down the line, and I feel like that's what they're building towards. And I feel like that could be a cage match from hell. I feel like it could be really, really good. And I feel like it could be an evolution to Jungle Boy's character. Like he could get more, you know, because, you know, he's still a kid, right? Yep. So it's like Cody. In 10 years, Cody's going to be, you know, he's going to be a lot bigger. He's going to be older. He's going to be wiser. He's going to be that much more big of a star. And I feel like Jungle Boy's on that trajectory.
Awesome. I agree. I want to see Jungle Boy break out of the Jurassic Express. That's just me. Minneapolis street fight with the Inner Circle versus Paige, Scorpio Sky, American Top Team. What you got?
Well, you know, I mean, Dan Lambert is like unbelievable. I mean, he's probably, besides MJF, the best heel they've got.
Yeah,
and it's like
exactly.
that's, I mean, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I feel like, you know, just the way he can talk and his timing is impeccable. I feel like Jericho, I kind of feel like the top team's going to go over. But it's obviously going to be something, you know, dastardly and you know, it's going to be a bullshit finish and everybody's going to be home pissed. And I feel like Jericho works better as the underdog. And I think he always has. And I think that he always rises. He's like the cream of the crop, you know what I mean? So I feel like he's like milk. The cream will rise to the top. And I feel like if you start him in a position as an underdog, it's just money.
Yeah. And plus there's a lot of members of that American top team. It's going to be a clusterfuck. And I think they will come out on top in the record books, I guess, for sure. Eliminator Tournament Finals, Miro versus Bryan Danielson.
Well, you know, I think the obvious is Bryan going over, and I feel like this is going to be a really, really good match because, you know, of their experience and, you know, how they've worked before. And I feel like, you know, being in the same companies now again,
right,
you know, they know how to speak the language. And I feel like it's kind of like anybody who's been in WWE that now is working in AEW, whenever they get into the ring with another person from that system or who has spent any considerable amount of time there, there's a certain thing that WWE has. It's a certain style. And I feel like the really smart wrestlers take that, a little bit of that style, and keep the grit of AEW and that independent kind of vibe, because they, you know, everybody knows that because they've all lived there. But and it's like an amalgamation, and I think that's what makes those matches so special, and that's why I feel like, you know, the Omega, Danielson, Bryan, whatever. I always get his name fucked up. It's Daniel Bryan Danielson.
Exactly.
I'm gonna call it the American Dragon because that's, you know, it's kind of like, you know. Anyways, long story short, I feel like those guys are gonna make a great match because I feel Miro's very talented. I think that he's definitely been given an opportunity to sort of come into his own as a believable beastie kind of like, you know, gnarly heel that doesn't really run away. And I think that's going to be the biggest challenge of the Dragons' tenure here in AEW. And I think it's going to be a good match, but I kind of feel like Bryan's going to go over.
Do you think the winner of this match is foreshadowing the winner of Omega Hangman Page? And what I mean is like heel face. So if Miro wins,
yeah,
you know, foreshadowing Hangman, Danielson, Omega.
Well, I feel like that's probably where it's going to go, because I don't necessarily know if Hangman, although he's a crowd favorite and an AEW guy through and through, I don't think that, you know, but the question I guess in my mind is he ready to take on that responsibility?
Right.
Is he ready to become that guy? I don't know. But I think Omega has obviously come into his own in a lot of ways, and there's other facets of his character that he's been able to explore. He's been able to kind of stretch himself and become not a different character, but he's been able to use stretch his personality, which I think has made him more viable. And he's a great fucking heel. He's a great wrestler, obviously. I wish he would sell a little bit better, but that's just my own personal opinion. Yeah. But I think what's going to be more interesting is part two. But my question is, well, how are they going to top what they did?
Right.
You know? And it's going to take a lot, unless they slow it down and it becomes more of a mat game. I don't know. The only way that I feel like, you know, a lot of the way that these matches go, there's not a lot of room. You know, the ceiling is, you're right there, and there hasn't been something yet that's been so inventive that's going to break through that ceiling. You know what I mean? I feel like it's kind of like peaked a little bit, especially with that kind of style. And if you think about those guys, and I'm talking about like Punk, Samoa Joe, Dragon, Amazing Red, you know, guys like Petey Williams, these types of guys who brought this style in that sort of blew it all up, and kind of they were like the Ramones. They came and changed rock and roll, right? So it's like they kind of did that, but that was also so long ago. And I think everybody's trying to do that thing, but it was already done by these guys who no one does it better than them, right? But if they're going to be the ones to take it to the next level, what does that look like? But then you see guys like Ninja Mac in GCW who is doing like insane stuff.
Exactly. Stuff I've never seen.
Oh my God, it's nuts what this guy's doing, and he's innovating, and it's like that's the only way that I could see it. Kind of like, you know, if those guys took that kind of thing and made it and incorporated it into what they're doing. I'm not saying it's boring or it's been played out. I just say that it's like it's a certain style that I feel will always be there. But since they're kind of the dudes that kind of did it,
right?
Like, you know, as a musician, you're always wanting to push yourself and do different things, and it's really easy to stay in the safety zone, right? And you always want to kind of move out of stuff and try different things. And me, it was about like joining other bands and, you know, doing other kinds of shit or whatever. But I would take that thing and bring it back to Rancid or to whoever I was recording with or playing with at that time. And I would take that knowledge and bring it in there and then elevate that or try to elevate that. And I feel like we're talking about two guys that bring something to elevate, and they've elevated each other. They had a 5-star fucking match. Yeah. But what do you do to top that? Where do you go? That's my question.
We're gonna find out, I suppose. So all right. So hold on. Okay. So who do you got? Omega or Hangman?
I think it's gonna be Omega, and I think it's gonna be Brian and Omega. You know, it has to be. I don't think unless it's Brian and Hangman, which would be fuck. I mean, that would be pretty beautiful too. Yeah. I mean, that would be the most unexpected. And it would, but then you're in a babyface kind of thing again. Yeah. And so then who plays what role? And we're already kind of seeing a babyface versus babyface with, you know, Punk and Eddie Kingston. So I don't know, is that too much? You know, you get what I'm saying? Yeah. So
it's going to be interesting.
But I don't really, but honestly, I don't really want to know.
Yeah.
I really honestly don't. I'm more happy to watch it unfold and be surprised, you know?
Lucha Bros and FTR tag championship match.
Oh man, I think it's going to be FTR.
Me too.
I really honestly do.
I love those guys.
I think the Lucha Brothers are incredible, of course. I think they're wonderful. I thought that match when they took the belts was incredible against this is the problem, hitting the head too many times. Who did they win the belts from?
Young Bucks.
Yeah. Thank you, Young Bucks. So that match was Vanessa's awesome. She's coming
right?
in. But yeah, so yeah, it's pretty cool.
And then I guess we'll end with the women's match. Britt Baker, DMD versus Ty Conti.
Ooh. Gonna be Britt all the way, 100%.
I agree. Awesome. Well, first of all, thanks for doing that with us. We've never done it with anyone, but I thought Wrestling Perspective Podcast, we got a pay-per-view coming up. Let's grab your perspective. Why not, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Lars, what we do at the end of every show is I'm going to give you the mic now. We've been dropping the links in the chat. You can put over anything you want. Wrestling Perspective, plug anything, bury anyone, talk about your solo EP, which is phenomenal, by the way, so people should check that out. But the floor is yours, my friend.
Well, you know, I got the new solo EP dropping on the 26th of November. I'm super excited about it. It's 6 songs. I sort of revisited a couple covers, and I'm, you know, did a couple videos. The last video comes out pretty soon for Skunks. I'm obviously on the Wrestling Perspective Podcast, and you know, on Fight TV, and I think there's a YouTube channel and a Twitch channel as well. On Instagram, I'm just Lars. For anything with a blue check on social media is me. I don't really fuck with Facebook because I just think it's toxic and it's stupid. And let's see, what else am I doing? Oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to bury anybody. No? You know what I mean? It's like no. I mean, I'm trying to think if there's any assholes that I can remember. Well, there is one asshole, but I don't want to talk shit about him. But let's see. That's all I really have, man. I mean, I'm just stoked, and thanks for taking your time out for me, and thanks for Vanessa for putting this together. I know I've been sort of hard to nail down, and I'm sorry once again I was late.
Hey, that's fine. Thank you for giving us your time. Thank your family for giving us the time, and we'll see you soon, man.
All right, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, take care. Peace.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Great stuff.